What's going on, Tamers? It's me, East, slowly being consumed by my beard. To my bearded brothers out there, if you guys have any tips on how to actually style this thing, please let me know down in the comments below. Your boy needs help. I know it's probably hard to believe, but I actually have curly hair, and that makes this thing right here very difficult to manage. Anyway, hair troubles aside, we are in our third week of events for the EX07 Digimon Liberator set over here in Japan and the rest of Asia, and it feels like the playing field is flattening. We've got the reintroduction of an old favorite, this time sporting some new friends, and a group of antagonists who has finally seized the power of a protagonist to rise to greatness. To learn more, let's take a look at some event results, a couple of key takeaways, and a close look at some of the decks at top over the course of the past week. Diving right into this week's results, you'll notice that the top two bands, the Mega level and Ultimate levels, are completely vacant, and that's because the Champion level has been widened with the use of 7 Great Demon Lords and Mirage Galgamon. Mirage Galgamon has been known for its ability to bypass deletion effects by bouncing cards back to hand, and also being able to bypass blockers with their level 5, but now they've also adopted the use of Ancient Garurumon as well as Hexablaumon to handle a greater amount of situations. On the topic of the 7 Great Demon Lords, however, Shoto Kazuma, the Green Tamer introduced in EX7, being able to give any Digimon blocker at the end of the turn, means the deck has more defensive power to stay in the game for longer. And while Shoto's inclusion in control decks has been good, it's probably not as great as I thought it'd be, considering we're still seeing consistent results from the Mother Control deck and not a huge increase like I thought maybe last week. Changing topics though, and for reasons I'm not quite too sure of, Diaboromon has seen a bump in results this past week, despite not running any of the Digimon Liberator token support cards. And while I am a big Diaboromon fan myself, I will hedge my bets here and mention that the events that Diaboromon did top were smaller in size than some of the other events out there. Something to keep in mind to keep us groundedly optimistic. A bit of unfortunate news if you're comparing this week's results to last week's is that still, a lot of the EX7 Digimon Liberator decks are having spotty results at best, where last week, Sandrymon and Zavagamon had great showings. This week is down to 1 win apiece, and still things like Lynx Dragons, Lilithmon, Nature Spirits, and Beelstar are still struggling to find good results. Compound this with the fact that BT18's Element Successor is going to release at the end of this week as of the recording of this video, makes me feel that a lot of these decks are going to fall by the wayside until we get more support in something like EX8, which has already been hinted at. One thing that you can be sure of though is that Shoto's will live on, albeit in the spirit of control decks for the foreseeable future. I figure with the release of EX6 happening soon in the English version of the game, it'd be interesting to take a look at some decks that were introduced in the EX6 set as well. The first one we're going to take a look at is going to be Diaboromon, and this is a really simple but effective list here. To make the cards a little bit easier to see, I'm going to swap over to DigimonCard.dev where I've recreated the entire deck, which you see here. The lower end of the deck has some pretty nice search cards in the EX6 Keramon as well as the BT15 Keramon, both of which lets you search out Digimon and Tamers and option cards if necessary. The deck also opts to run 2 different kinds of floodgates here, one in the Chikurimon to stop things like 7 Great Demon Lords from reducing play costs, as well as things like Kokuomon, who I think is going to be seeing a bit more popularity in the coming sets, where he stops players from ignoring Digivolution costs. You just have to be careful here because you also run the risk of your own BT17 Keramon being able to evolve into an Infernmon on your opponent's turn. At the level 4s, this deck leans really heavily on the BT5 Chrysalimon, letting you play Arata Tamers for free whenever he's Digivolved into if you don't have one on the board, despite the fact that they only run 3 copies of the Arata Tamer itself. More importantly though, what you're looking for is the rush ability that it gives all of your Diaboromon or same named Digimon in inheritance. This means that once you get to a Diaboromon and you can play tokens, those tokens can attack the turn they come out. And this is made even better by the EX6 Diaboromon, which you see a 4 of here in the deck, letting you play tokens not only on Evolve, but also at the start of your main phase, and whenever your opponent would play a Digimon on their turn. Not only that, but he gives all of those tokens jamming and blocker, which means they can be used either offensively or defensively. And when you combine the blocker ability with something like the Dorimon here at the level 2s, it essentially lets you steal your opponent's turns. You see ways for you to gain memory whenever another blocker is deleted using this guy, as well as cards like Parabolic Junk at 2 of. Additionally, at the level 5s, they sport some pretty nasty de-Digivolution effects, where the BT17 Infernmon just gives you de-Digivolution and stops your opponent's Digimon with a play cost of 8 or lower from attacking player directly. And then both Infernmon let you de-Digivolve whenever you would play a Diaboromon on the board. What I really like about this build is its ability to play defensively and essentially steal turns, using cards like Dorimon as well as Parabolic Junk in order to generate more turns so that you can play more tokens with Diaboromon and then turn that into offense using the jamming ability. While it seems that Japan has an allergy to control decks, I feel like I would be a bit remiss if I didn't show off like the one time it actually got popular here, and so I want to take a look at a Mother Control deck. Like before, I've gone ahead and created a cleaner and easier to read version here on DigimonCard.dev, and while I will say there's a black version of Mother Control that's kind of running around using the Mind Linking Tamers, this version of the list isn't half bad either. One of the things you want to make sure happens very quickly is to actually get your Shoto Kazuma tamer up so that you can give the Mother D Reaper blocker. And what this deck does to solve that issue is by adding in a couple copies of Shumon and the Digimon Liberator. The Shumon also has the nice added benefit of being able to search puppets, which means Edamon is a perfect target here. Speaking of level 5s, you've got the Edamon to force out attacks and weaken your opponent's Digimon, and the Magna Angemon A's here just for some nice recovery. And then once you've used the Edamon to taunt one of your opponent's Digimon into attacking, you have great options with things like the Valkyremon Ace for blanket minus DP, as well as the Seraphimon Ace for DP minus and recovery. The Cherubimon Ace here on the other hand seems like it's more meant for offense. The only target it can actually play from its effect is Shumon, and with only 3 copies in the deck, it's going to be pretty unlikely you have it in your hand. Whereas if you use its Alliance ability with like a Mother D Reaper on the board, you essentially can check 27,000 for 2 checks. Speaking of offense, looking at the level 7s, you've got 2 options in the Gallantmon Crimson mode here for games that go really long where you and your opponent have both built up trash, as well as the cards like Imperial Digimon Paladin mode Ace, where if your opponent tries to go wide to get around your Mother D Reaper blockers, you have an answer to that as well. And then just lots of really nasty options, things like Trident Arm to, again, force attacks and weaken your opponent's Digimon with the Digivolve. You've got Crimson Blaze for really cheap removal for low-level Digimon or low DP Digimon. And then things like Heaven's Judgment to just either wipe flexibly one big Digimon or multiple small Digimon. And while we did talk about the Shoto Kazama tamer here before, there are other tamers in this deck that are meant for control. Things like the Black Tide tamer to pump up your Mother D Reaper when they block, as well as things like the Tai and Kairi tamer here to essentially give you more memory at the start of a turn and weaken your opponent's security. And then finally Digimon Emperor here to stop opponents from coming out of racing with a Patamon and then going into a level 6 Magnamon in one turn. All in all, just looking at a list like this, I think it's really easy to see why the combo of Mother D Reaper and the Shoto Kazama tamer are a boogeyman in the format right now. Each week, I allow my champion level and higher YouTube members to vote on decks they like to see featured in these meta report videos, and this week nearly half of them voted to see Mastamon. If you'd like to vote on decks that you want to see covered in these meta report videos, consider becoming a champion level YouTube member as well. Again, I want to give a warm thank you to all the folks who help support the channel, and with that, let's take a look at Mastamon. What you see here is the image of the list taken by the card shop here. What I really love is the 2D version of the Mastamon here on the back of the sleeves. These are super hot. Anyway though, for readability, I've gone ahead and recreated this in DigimonCard.dev so we can take a look at it together. And this is a really basic list that you can put together even in EX6. The EX6 Mirai Tamer gives you immediate access to a level 5 on the board whenever you would just play a Gatomon down for either 4 or 5. And if you are using the starter deck version of the Gatomon, you essentially get a free evolve into the level 5 because the Mirai Tamer reduces the cost by 1 and the Gatomon itself reduces the cost by 2. If you're having a little bit of trouble finding some of your pieces, you can either use the BT11 Angelmon to search your security for them, or the BT11 Lady Devimon to search your trash for them. Additionally, the new Lady Devimon and Angelmon both let you play a Mirai Tamer down on the board if you don't already have one for free, and then they both support some amazing effects. For example, the Lady Devimon can pop a level 4 whenever she's played or Digivolved into, has Retaliation, and an inheritance gives your Digimon Scapegoat. For those unfamiliar with what Scapegoat actually is, think of it as the opposite of Decoy, where with Decoy, whenever one of your Digimon will be deleted, you can delete the Digimon with Decoy. Scapegoat says that whenever that Digimon with the effect is deleted, you can delete something else on the board. Turning our attention to the Angelmon here, it can give security attack -2, as well as has barrier, and then inheritance gives alliance, which is huge. The game plan with the Masty Ace here is just to get one level 5 on board, and then whenever your opponent would attack on their turn, you can blast Digivolve, assuming you have the other level 5 in hand, whether it's Angelmon or Lady Devimon. What's really nice is that once you've played one Mastamon Ace, she lets you essentially play one of your other level 5s with the exception of the Lucamon Chaos mode, to essentially set up another Mastamon Ace if you have one in hand. The old Mastamon does give you access to the Lucamon Chaos mode though, which lets you flexibly remove either Tamers or Digimon at level 6 and lower. One really small but also very important part of this deck is the 2 copies of Psychemon at the level 3s. Because decks like 7 Great Demon Lords are becoming more popular again, he's a great way to check them and force them to pay full cost for all the Digimon they play on the board. And then finally, this deck actually is only 49 cards if you look very closely, and that's because the player wanted to show off their actual sleeve here, and so I'm not really sure what this last card could be. I have a couple of ideas. I'm assuming it's either maybe another Chaos Degradation, or maybe one copy of maybe like an Ordinamon. It could also be one copy of like the BT17 Shine Greymon Burst Mode. That feels like it could fit in here as well. But let me know what you think this card could be in the comments below. And so with that, we're going to wrap up the 3rd week of events for the EX7 Digimon Liberator set over here in Asia. And with BT18's Element Successor coming out at the end of the week, like I mentioned before, unfortunately I feel like a lot of these decks are going to kind of fall by the wayside. But I am hoping that maybe we can find something in that next set that can help buff some of these decks up. I also am really excited because we did see Bandai announce the dual colored memory boost, which could help a lot of the decks in this set, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what that brings. That being said, I'm going to get out of here. Before you get out of here, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.